everyone, Karen at Worldschooling Central. Are you trying to figure out the best way to educate your child as you world school? In today's Friday Live, we'll be chatting about the top 6 ways kids learn while travelling. Watch this to find out more. Hey everybody, it's Karen King at Worldschooling Central and welcome back to another Friday Live. At Worldschooling Central, our whole goal is to help you find out more about worldschooling, learn everything that you need to know and get out there and start traveling this incredible world with your kids. For those that haven't met me, my name's Karen King. I've been worldschooling now for 5.5 years with my family. And when we first got started, the biggest thing that I wish was that I'd started sooner. So I started Worldschooling Central just more than anything to help people learn. And one of the biggest questions, of course, I had and many other families have when they're getting started is how do kids learn? Are the kids going to be okay? You know, what's their education going to be like? And of course, 5.5 years on, I've experienced a lot for myself. But what I wanted to do, these Friday Lives are designed to give you information to help you learn about worldschooling. So today we're going to dive in and talk about education, the top 6 ways to educate your children whilst you're traveling. Joining me today, I have Liz Quain. Hey Liz, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
Good. Liz is the Partnership Director with Galileo, which we'll talk about a little bit more in detail, but she's also a worldschooling mum of 5 years as well. Tell us a little bit about your adventures and your background, Liz.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Karen. I think it's funny because I think we both launched around the same time.
We did.
5 or so years ago. So I have 12-year-old twin girls, and we were living outside of Seattle, and I used to own a children's business, a play cafe and preschool. And we just burned out of the whole like rat race of owning a business. I know people think that, oh, you own your own business, you're your own boss, but it was just crazy. And my kids were getting too old for it. So we sold the business. And I had traveled a lot before I had kids to over 40 countries. So it's always been a passion of mine. And, I just thought I heard about the concept of world schooling and being a digital nomad. And I just said, this is awesome. We should try it at least for a year. And so the first year I pulled my kids out of school. They did kindergarten and first grade. And then one of my girls has ADHD and school was just not working out for her. Mm-hmm. They were really wanting her to kind of fit into their, little box. And she is just a different person, and she learns more by doing and experiencing things. So I just wanted, especially from working so much, having a business. I know you used to have that type of crazy business too. We just needed a break. And so I sold my business and we traveled mostly around Asia for 10 months and deschooled. We didn't do any curriculum. I did meet up with other world schooling families that had some type of Charlotte Mason system and other things. So I was trying to learn that year from other parents that we met while traveling, what they were doing as far as education. I also was taking that year to also figure out what I wanted to do work-wise. And we spent some time in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I went to all these meetups, and because I was busy going to all those digital nomad meetups, I hired a nanny. So she was American, but also part Thai. So she had a car and would take my kids out to all these cultural places, and sometimes would meet up with the other world schooling families when I couldn't go. And so we tried it that way. And then we traveled around Europe for a little bit. Then we were back in the States. And then we went to Medellin, Colombia, and we were there at a time when the schools were closed. Because initially I was thinking, let me try to find some type of school to put my kids in, and they can learn Spanish that way. But I guess in Colombia, in the mountain towns, they close for 3 months during the wintertime because that's kind of their Christmas big holiday instead of a summer break. And so we had a nanny again, and she would take my kids out. And then I did find a small private school in Peru in the Sacred Valley to put my girls in. And that was great because they, really picked up the language, and they were with all these local Peruvian kids. And then, we tried different things. We were in Mexico for a while. We went to the Family Adventure Summit, and there was a stone soup pop-up that was awesome. We were living near 35 other world schooling families, and we would meet up 3 times a week to just, co-learn, co-share everything. And then, we were just trying so many things. And my girls also attended an Agile Learning Center in Playa del Carmen for a while. So those were fine. There were pros and cons to a lot of that. And then eventually we joined Galileo, which we can talk about later. But yeah, so that's kind of our initial education experience. Again, my girls attended my preschool, and then we tried many different ways for them to learn. And we even unschooled, self-directed learning. Whatever my girls were into, I would try to facilitate what they wanted to learn. But as a busy working single mom, I didn't have time to be super hands-on with them. So I was always looking for another way to help my girls learn what they were interested in. And so that's my story so far.
And you know what, what I hear in your story is what I hear from so many other families. It's about finding what works for your family, and truly Worldschooling can be whatever works for your family. But for a lot of new people that are just getting started, I've had a couple of conversations just in the last 24 hours with people saying, oh, but I don't know what to do. Like, they should be doing lessons and they should be doing this, but I don't want to carry books with me. And there's so many pros and cons to all the different things. And so that's why I wanted to have you on today, so that we can look at all the different options. Well, not all of them, but the most popular. And we can have a look at the pros and have a look at the cons, so families can decide for themselves. What I want to do to start with, though, is I want to talk about the traditional school system. Now, I preface this by saying I didn't pull my kids out of school because I had a problem with the school system. And I know, like me, you did your whole education and university and all of those sorts of things. That's the system that we grew up in. But what I'd like to do is have a little bit of a chat about what the traditional school system looks like and how that's impacting our kids now and how it's going to impact them in the future. So let me jump into here. So this is a little presentation that you've put together. So talk us through this, the traditional school system.
Yeah, again, I went through the traditional school system. I did fine. This was many, many years ago. And ever since I launched the preschool and then started Worldschooling my kids, I've done a lot of research on this. And those of us who have studied this, have seen that the traditional school system has a lot of problems. In the age of the internet, modern technology, and the ability for children to learn in a personalized and individualistic way, the traditional school system has been pretty slow to change. It's still, embracing this antiquated and standardized one-size-fits-all curriculum. And there's still too much rote memorization and lots of testing still, and lots of coercive practices to get students to learn what the school system or the state deems to be important. But they're still using a curriculum that's about 50 years old, and it's 2021. So when you consider that 53% of recent US college grads are unemployed or underemployed, I mean, that's a shocking figure. A lot of people who have engineering degrees or other things, they're working jobs that just, are not at their level. And then you also consider that student engagement has decreased from 80% on average for kindergartners to 40% for high school freshmen. So that's 14, 15 years old. You can see that there is something wrong there. The current traditional school system is not working for a large percentage of our young people. But if you're not yet convinced, then I suggest you watch Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk, which is the most watched TED Talk ever, titled "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" And when kids are not engaged, they're not going to learn. In fact, 90% of what a typical student learns, quote unquote, learns in school gets lost afterwards. Karen, how much of what you learned in school do you remember?
Oh, I laugh at this all the time. Not much. And I remember specifically, like in university, I did a journalism degree. And I remember all the time just cramming for those exams. I don't remember anything that I learned around, like history, for example. I just don't remember. I did what I had to do. I got very high grades, and it was out of the memory, 2 days later, really.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because you're probably good at short-term memory. You can put things in your brain for short-term and take the test. And then if you're not using that information or skills on a regular basis, it atrophies. You forget about it. So what's the use? I mean, what's the use of forcing students to learn things they're not interested in or practical in their life that they'll soon forget? And all the stress that and anxiety that comes with school, with grades, with GPA scores. I mean, what is the purpose of it all? So those of us who have studied this, the history of education, have learned that the school system was set up a couple hundred years ago during the first industrial revolution to create literate and obedient future factory workers, then future office workers. And it worked wonderfully for many years, and it helped our civilization around the world prosper. But now in the fourth industrial revolution, the thinking is out of date. It's more important for students to have 21st century skills, such as critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. And also, due to a more globally connected world, it's more important than ever to be a global citizen. So, you know, we can go on and talk about how education has changed and how the world of work has changed, how, you know, many of us will have multiple jobs in our life. And basically, it's important to learn how to learn. And so when the new thing comes to you or your child, they will know how to learn it. They don't have to wait for a teacher to teach them how to do that job or launch that business. So that's, you know, kind of what's happening with the education system and what the problems are. And I think unless you really research it and read John Holt or Peter Gray or, you know, all the other alternative education people who really put a microscope on the traditional school system and saw the problems with it in this day and age, I think it's really easy to just say, I'm just going to put my kids in school, or we're going to travel, we're going to live in this country for a year, let me put my kids in this expensive international school, because that's what we did or what our parents did. That's what's comfortable for us, to be in that traditional mindset, that mode. But it's not really working out for the best for the kids.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I love this slide. This one, like I said, I didn't take the kids out of school because I had any sort of issue. But what I've realized since then is the impact that was having. And in reality, I mean, I didn't learn budgeting. I didn't learn money management. There's so many real life skills that I didn't learn, or, you know, people don't learn at school. And when you think about our kids' future jobs, 65% haven't even been invented yet.
Right.
I think that's really critical. So it's, like you said, it's about learning how to learn and being able to follow those passions. And like I said, I didn't take them out of school because I had any issue with the school, but what I've seen since is that it was having a negative impact on my kids. And I'm so glad we started Worldschooling as a result, because what I'm seeing in my kids now is, you know, it's going to have a massive impact on their lives moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah, they're so much happier and they're learning what they're passionate about, and they're seeing the world and becoming global citizens and more open to diverse thoughts and ideas. I mean, that's a big problem. A lot of people in the world are very stuck on, oh, well, this is what my town believes and the people in my family, and this is what the news station, you know, they don't have critical thinking skills. They're in a small bubble. So those of us who world school are in a slightly bigger bubble.
I think you do what you know. And I think that's what Worldschooling has done for us. It's opened our world and shown us all of the other options that are out there. And you know, most of them have been a better option for us. So look, let's dive in and look at the 6 most popular methods of educating for Worldschooling families. And I think people, like you mentioned at the start, and I know we did, many people start in one place and kind of transition as they learn more, as their confidence grows, and as they get to know their kids. You know, pulling your kids out of school and learning, how does my child learn best? You know, that's going to have an impact as well. So let's start with homeschooling. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, homeschooling is basically school at home or on the road, in our case. It's parent-led, so the parent is the teacher. It's do it yourself, you know. The parent is kind of, you know, either figuring it out the curriculum themselves, or they buy a curriculum. In the old days, you would, you know, like if you were homeschooling, in the 80s, you would send money to a company, they would send you a box of curriculum. So it was box curriculum. And so, you know, and I know that some Worldschooling families, they still stay connected to the school back in their home, and that school will send them, they'll take the textbooks with them and the worksheets and still like take pictures of it and email it back to the teacher. I mean, that sounds really crazy to me, because, you know, they're learning about the American Civil War while they're at the Panama Canal. I mean, shouldn't you learn about the Panama Canal while you're there? Like, there's so many things to learn about that, or wherever you are in the world, all the history and the engineering things and marine biology and all the things that you can learn while traveling. But instead, you're reading through books. And I think that is definitely the not the type of learning that my kids, I've tried to say, hey, let's spend a little time learning about this. And they're like, no, we're in Bali. I want to go out and check out the animals and the monkeys and stuff. And so also people will sometimes use, online software, which is great, like Khan Academy or Duolingo or, Code Combat, all the different things. So that's fine too. But I think many kids get really disinterested and in that type of forced learning, because like the teacher used to tell them what to learn, and now mom or dad is telling them what to learn. And they might do it for a while, especially if they're very obedient children. Mine are not. But you might need to bribe them or, just really coerce them to get the learning done. And it's not really necessary, because remember, they're not going to remember all that stuff you're forcing them to learn. Remember?
And I think this is kind of it's an interesting place to start. And I think a lot of families start here because that's what they know. They know the school system. So they essentially say, well, you know what, we'll take you out of school, but we'll replicate that and we'll do it at home. So I think for a lot of families in the beginning, it's the safe option because it's kind of, it's a little bit out of left field, so to speak, but it's within that realm of what they understand. And it's certainly where I started. I was like, well, we need to be doing lessons and we need to be doing grades, and we need to keep up with the school system and all of this sort of stuff. But what I realized very quickly was all it was doing for us was creating arguments. And I know that I've interviewed so many families now who have said the same thing. This is where we started. It just created arguments. It got really heavy carrying all of those books around. And the big thing that I always hear is, as we started traveling, we saw them learning from experiences. Exactly. And until you start traveling, you don't see that. So it's a good place to start, but I would suggest for a lot of families, it doesn't necessarily last too long because, I think the other thing with that is, like you said, they're not going to remember it. It's forced, and it takes away the joy of what Worldschooling can be. But it is, it is a place where a lot of people start. I guess the next one that people do sort of maybe transition to, or maybe it's sort of 50-50 with homeschooling, is the online schooling. So registering with a regular school.
Yeah, and I heard that some of them will do something that they're not so much live. I don't know if you know of very many live sessions. Those are fairly expensive, most of them, but it's schooling, homeschooling done online, and it's teacher or curriculum led, instead of parent led. So it's a similar model to regular school, but it's online. But they include testing and getting grades and all that. I think a lot of them are pre-recorded lessons. So, you kind of watch the stuff and then you take a test. But I think you're familiar with some things that have set hours and are live. We looked at a couple of different things because, when I realized that we were having these arguments and it was having a negative impact on our relationship with the kids, I thought, all right, well, what if I look for a school online that the children can attend so that they have teachers that are, and then I can just support them. Yeah. So the couple of different things we looked at, they had live classes and the kids had to attend, certain live classes. The problem was that they were all in a set time zone. And, my kids were going to have to be getting up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, or, if we were flying that day, moving to a new country, well, then they're going to miss a class and then they're going to be behind. And it was very much school in a traditional sense, just done virtually, which I guess, is almost what a lot of kids have done over the last 12 months with the pandemic. Right. So for us, I could see the benefits, but with our desire to be nomadic and move and be able to travel, I just couldn't find a way to make that sort of live sessions work. Exactly. Okay, so then next we have local schools, and I mentioned that my kids, we did put them in a school in Peru, and at that point I just told them I don't care what my kids learn as long as they learn Spanish. And I speak some Spanish, and it was kind of tricky. If you don't speak Spanish or the language of that country, the school administrator may not speak English. So luckily I did, but you have to pay, even if you're only there for a handful of months, you still have to pay like the registration fee and the materials fee up front, which can be kind of pricey. My girls had a nice time at their school. I've heard from other friends that they were kind of bullied a little bit for being foreigners, Or like, what are you doing with short hair? We all wear long hair in our country. Girls do that, you know? So, you know, and then others have these uniforms that you have to buy, and they're a regular school. You have to start early in the morning at these things, and it's a strict curriculum. And you know, again, it's maybe in another language, and the first few months are tough if your kids are new to it. But you know, it is a very effective way of your kids being forced to learn that language because they have no choice because everyone's speaking it. Although if you go to a bilingual school, they might still be speaking English or whatever your language is. You know, it's like there are French schools, there's German schools, there's a whole bunch of different schools. So that's that. I don't know, for us, I thought it was just kind of difficult to manage if you're there short term. I think if you're living someplace for a whole year and you're willing to make the investment of all the registration and the uniforms and all that, it makes sense. You know, it's a great experience for the kids. They're definitely socializing. They're learning the local customs and the cultures, and probably celebrating the holidays there. So I don't know. I mean, I've heard good and bad things. I think it also depends on the school. There are alternative schools that you can put your kids in. Like my kids went to an Agile Learning Center, which oddly had a lot of really young kids who were screaming. And my kids were like, I'm done with this. So it really depends on the school. And I would just say, try to get lots of reviews before you commit, because you got to commit. You got to, like, we're signing up for you. Here's thousands of dollars for us to join your school. And a lot of the best schools are full, you know, and they're sometimes hard to get into.
I did. So at 16, I was an exchange student in Bolivia for 12 months. So I did 12 months in a local school. And I have great memories of that. And I tell you, it certainly helped me learn the language quickly. You know, there's no better way than having to learn the language, because you're at school and you want to communicate with the other kids, and the other kids love to teach you. I remember walking around, you know, the I don't know what you call it, the quadrangle or whatever it's called. And, you know, the girls would teach me how to count. We'd take a step and, you know, we'd count the number of the steps in the language. So, you know, it was a great way to learn. Like you said, though, I mean, I was there for 12 months, so it was a long-term thing. So I think for families that are going to a location, they're going to be there, you know, 6 months or 12 months or whatever, I think it's a wonderful idea. You know, we sort of considered it here. Where we are here, though, there is a very little school, and it really, I don't think it would work for our children. I guess from a world schooling perspective, if your goal is to continue to travel, then, you know, we considered it. And my daughter even asked, she'd never been to school. So she said, can you enroll me in a local school here? We just couldn't find a way to make it work with the frequency that we were traveling. So that was probably the biggest issue for me. But like you said, I also heard a lot of stories about bullying, you know, boys being put into school, and, you know, all the girls think this boy is so cute because he's, you know, fair skin or whatever. And the boys at the school bullying because suddenly, you know, this cute boys turned up and taken all their attention, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, that's certainly something that worried me as well. So it's hard
to be an outsider. I think it really depends on the school. I mean, my girls were at that little school in Peru, were treated like celebrities. And then the school, the Agile Learning Center in Mexico, which is much more international, they were kind of ignored and shunned. It was kind of weird. And also it is hard to get into a public school unless you're a resident of that country, you know? So often you're looking at private schools.
Yeah. Now, just a quick comment. If anybody has any questions, would like to, you know, say anything as we're talking about these, you are welcome to ask questions in below the live. What I would suggest, because we can't actually see your name or your photo or anything like that unless you go to streamyard.com/Facebook. So if you go to that link first, click the button that says, you know, I give you permission to see my name, then we'll be able to see that. But regardless, either way, if you have any questions about the topics that we're talking about or want to share your experience, feel free to do that, and we'll share that on the screen. Okay, so local schools, and then we're talking about hiring tutors. Now, this is not one I've done. So what's your experience with this, and from other families' point of view as well?
Yeah, I saw somebody post in a group recently about asking, has anyone hired a tutor to travel with them? And I think that sounds interesting, but it sounds kind of expensive. And I'm wondering, if the tutor is going to be able to help your kids with all the different subjects that they might be wanting to learn. When we were in Medellin, Colombia, we had a nanny, but there was another time where I somehow met this college professor, and he said, oh, I have lots of students you can hire, and one's really good at math and one's really good at, X, Y, Z. So I would have them come to our apartment, for an hour or two a week and do that. And that was okay. But, again, it's so like hard to manage. Oh, you can't come today. You're WhatsApping them in Spanish, okay, what day can you come? And I don't know, it was okay. We got to meet more local people that way. But I think if you want somebody who's bilingual, they can be expensive. And then if you don't speak their language and they don't speak English or whatever language you speak, there's a language barrier. I mean, there was a time when not a tutor, but a nanny took my girls out to a playground, and one of my girls said to the nanny, catch me, and she was on top of this playground thing, and she didn't understand her, and we all had to go to the emergency room and get stitches.
Oh no.
She fell.
Yeah
I mean, that's the language barrier issue. So I think that the tutors might be expensive, or they might be just limited in what subjects that they can help your kids with. That's been my again. I'd love to hear if anyone's done this successfully. Maybe post something in the comments.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people asking, looking for tutors that they can. Oops, I think we've got a slight delay. But yeah, I've certainly seen.
I'm back.
That's okay. The joys of world schooling. Hey, it happens. But yeah, I've certainly seen people do it. It's not something that I've had a lot of experience with personally, or really even spoken to too many people that do it. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily one of the most popular ways, but it's certainly something that parents can consider. It gives you that ability to get some work done, have someone there. Whether it's a nanny or a tutor or a sort of combination of the both, it's certainly a valid option for parents that might want to go down that route. Now, this is the one that we're going to be looking at a fair bit in the upcoming future. We're at that stage, after COVID, we really want community again. And there is no community like the Worldschooling community. There's nothing like connecting with other Worldschooling families and learning from them. So talk us through Worldschooling hubs and pop-up learning centres. Oh, you're there?
Yeah, we have visited some Worldschooling hubs, and can you hear me? I think my internet might be not so good. But we have visited some Worldschooling hubs, and we intentionally try to go to places where a lot of Worldschoolers live. We attended some summits, which great, a lot of people there. And I really liked, this was one group, the Stone Soup Pop-Up. They haven't done any for a while because of COVID, but we went to one in San Miguel de Allende where about 40 families were there, and we rented a co-working space for 3 days a week, and then Thursday was a park day, and we just hung out with them a lot. We all lived separately in our own Airbnbs. And then we were planning to do the same thing with a similar group of people in Guatemala, but then COVID hit and we were literally stopped at the border. We couldn't cross. But I'm really looking forward to doing that again. They're a lot of fun. The kids, the stuff, I wouldn't say they learn anything like really academic. They're learning about local culture and having lots of fun and running around and playing. And the parents really connect with each other. So it's like a really nice social thing. I mean, most of them are short-term 1 month things. So I think it's great for socializing and having a lot of fun and learning about the local culture. But as far as, I don't know, preparing for the future, maybe not. I know some of them are kind of hard to get to. You have to fly and drive a long way to get them, or some of them sell out quickly, like Anahata outside of Cancun. I mean, whenever she posts, oh, we're ready for the next month, like it sells out quickly. And that's more of a co-living Worldschooling hub. But I'm really happy that these are popping up around the world. I'm super excited about this concept.
I think what I'm loving about it is the ability to go to a location, create that community and learn about that location, in person. At the end of the day, that's what Worldschooling is.
Together as a group too, that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. We've run 2 different trips now, Worldschooling Central. We ran a trip to Indonesia and a trip to Egypt. both of which were for 2 weeks, 10 or 11 families coming together. And, I mean, both trips were incredible. Egypt, for example, I mean, what a place to go and learn as a community. So I guess for me, that was more about, in school, you sit and you learn about history in a book. These 10, 11 families that we had with us in Egypt, we got to experience that and see the tombs and see the mummies and all of this sort of stuff. So maybe not, consciously learning math and science, but, so much value in learning those. So unfortunately, we had 8 trips planned for last year, but of course, that all went by the wayside. Starting to think about an Egypt trip for this year. So if the world keeps opening up, that would be fun too. Oh my goodness, I just so want to get out there. And I've got so many people that are interested, but you are right, they sell out really quickly. Our 2 trips sold out. The first one sold out within 2 weeks, the second one within a month. So, they don't last too long. But definitely a wonderful option for families that want to create community, that want to have some time. I know we spend we spend a lot of time, traveling, just the 4 of us, and then we get to the stage where we're like, you know what, let's go and find our people, our tribe. And that's where, Worldschooling hubs and these pop-up communities are just wonderful. So
exactly.
And then I think the big one that, a lot of people embrace once they really understand Worldschooling and they have the confidence and they've seen what their children are learning is the more unschooling type approach. So talk to us about unschooling.
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm a proponent of unschooling, but I prefer the phrase self-directed education.
Yep.
That's just more accurate to me, child-led learning. But it's learning through experiences, and the child gets to choose what they want to learn, and therefore they're more likely to learn with passion and remember and learning skills and stuff. So as a unschooling parent, it's DIY, and it's instead of being the teacher, you are the facilitator of what your child wants to learn. So you do need to spend time with your kids and watch them if they're really young, or if they're older, they'll say, hey, I'm really interested in learning X, Y, and Z. And so your job is to help find that class, or, whether it's online or in real life or whatever it is, and help them learn that. If you can teach, help them with that, or find another teacher or something like that. So but once the kids get older, they get pretty self-directed in their learning and self-organized, and they kind of figure out how to do it. I think it can be a bit overwhelming for parents who don't really know how to facilitate. They haven't really deschooled yet. You kind of need a process, kind of like not do anything, like let your kids just play or play video games or chat with their friends on Discord. You just need to let them get away from that traditional mindset. And then you also need to learn how to strew things and introduce topics to them. Don't force it, but just say, hey, I heard that somebody's doing this. That sounds cool. Do we want to check it out? But it is easy, I think, to neglect certain things. I feel like I've heard some adult unschoolers are doing awesome, but others are like, I really wish I was exposed to more when I was younger, and I wish my parents would took more part in what I wanted to learn instead of just leaving it up to me. I mean, that's, to me, a little bit more neglectful. I mean, you want to give your kids freedom, but also you want to kind of be their coach and their facilitator. And it's hard to do if you're busy working all the time, so it does take time. But I think for me, I really like the self-directed education method, but I didn't feel like I solo could be the person to strew and introduce to my kids all the things about the future, skills and stuff that I don't know yet. So that's why the program that we're with now works really great for us, because there's other adults to help with that.
Yeah. I think for us, unschooling has taken a lot of time to, I guess, have the confidence to trust in. But I want to talk a moment about deschooling, because I think that is something that's really, really important to do. For me, once I got through that sort of period and I started to have the confidence to unschool, what I've realized now is that learning for our family happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yes. I wouldn't say I so much look for things to, I guess, point them in the direction of. But what I find is that we're just having these conversations that bring up topics, you know, where the hotel that we're renting at the moment, we have the most amazing cloud formations. And so just very naturally, why do the clouds look like that? And so we all then want to know the answer, not just the kids. It's not just, well, you guys should go and research that. We all want to know what the answer to that is. So then, you know, we go away and we learn about that. And you know, the number of science experiments I've done in the last 5.5 years has been crazy. But what I've discovered is that when we've truly got into that more unschooling approach, every day is just, you know, answering questions that come up naturally. Yes. And you know, my daughter she loves to bake, so a lot of her math skills, for example, is, you know, fractions through baking. You know, all of that sort of stuff, finding real life experiences that you're doing. But like you said, I love the word facilitator. I'm definitely not their teacher. I'm their facilitator. Right. And when they say, hey, you know, I don't understand why this is like this, well, then we'll go and look at it, and then we'll find some, you know, YouTube videos or whatever. And I might say to them, hey, can you watch that and then come back to me and let me know what the answer is, or like if I'm busy working, whatever the case may be. So I think facilitator is a really good answer. But what I've realized is that unschooling has really given them the ability to learn how to learn. And I think that is critical, like we talked about early in the beginning. Knowing how to learn. When they want to, my son announced the other day that he's learning Japanese. I'm like, okay. I said, when did that happen? You know, it's just an interest that he had. And so he's gone on and just started learning that for himself, because he knows how to find the resources that he needs. And he's able to follow those interests. Having said that, though, I would also say that works really well for us when we're traveling. And I know that when COVID hit, you know, here in Panama, we got locked in our house for 8 months. So there was no traveling. The kids didn't even leave the house for 6 months. So unschooling at that point got very, very difficult. And that's when I was introduced to Galileo. We'll talk about that in just a second, because I do want to talk about deschooling. But Galileo for us has been a perfect combination. So before we dive into that, let's just touch on deschooling, because I think this is for a person that, like you and I, has gone through the traditional school system, is used to that system, and is about to embark on a world schooling adventure. I think it's critical to deschool. So tell me your explanation of deschooling.
Well, again, it's a mindset shift for the student and the parent, even more so the parent, I think.
Nobody ever told me that I had to deschool.
They're like, the kid has to deschool. No, the parent more so than the child, especially if it's a young child. I mean, they, you know, again, the self-directed learning, they did it the minute they were born, right? And while they were babies, toddlers, you know, whatever, they were just playing and learning through play and exploring the world and being curious and, you know, learning that way naturally. And then, you know, some of us took them in that natural state and put them in a classroom and made them sit down and learn how to write and do all that academic stuff. And so I heard that, you know, it takes time for the kids who have been in that system to get out of that system. And because especially kids who have been doing it for a while, they're so used to being told what to learn and not knowing when to learn it, and they don't really know what they're interested in. A lot of them have lost their interests and passions. And so I heard that you should deschool for 1 month for every year that you've been in school. And so the first year, I mean, that we traveled, we just deschooled. We didn't do anything hardly academic. I mean, I think I tried to read Harry Potter to them, and we were trying to learn some languages while we were traveling, but nothing serious. And my girls, again, they were still young. They were 7.5 when we started traveling, but they, you know, they started exploring their interests. And one of them has always been interested in art. And so she just kept going, you know, and she's now an amazing 12-year-old digital artist, and she's learning 2D animation and all that stuff and graphic design. I mean, that's because she's passionate about it. I never pushed that on her. So I think the deschooling for the parent is when you see your child just playing and exploring and working on Minecraft or whatever it is, let them do that. And also let them get bored, because that is when they're going to start like getting curious about things and getting creative. And you see that a lot of these unschooled kids or really young kids are much more creative than kids who have been put in the school system for a while. So it takes time to kind of shed all the artificial expectations of what learning is supposed to be. And the parents need to just relax, let go, stop trying to be in control of what your kids are learning, and just trust in the process. It's not easy.
No, it's not easy. And like I said, nobody told me that I had to deschool. It was never on my radar. And so I struggled for a long time because I thought, well, I've done his 5 months, his 6 months of deschooling. It's not working. What's going on? And that was purely because I was still heavily embedded in my school, the traditional schooling system. Something that I became aware of, and like I said earlier in the call, we didn't take the kids out of school because we had any issue with the school system. We just wanted more out of life. We wanted to travel. We wanted to show them the world. When we took our son out, he'd done 5 years plus kindergarten, so 6 years of school. In that first little period, any mention of schooling or learning or anything was just met with this brick wall. No, learning is something that happens between 9 and 3 at school. I'm not at school now, so I'm not learning anything. And you know what it actually broke my heart a little bit, because I'd taken this little gorgeous little kid who he was an absolute sponge. He was reading before he started school, and he just did it because he loved doing it. And when I pulled him out of school, which again, I'd put him in school because that's what you do. When I pulled him out, all of a sudden I realized that they'd killed that desire to learn. And it really did break my heart. So we started deschooling, and I said to my husband, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And we did this research on deschooling. So we said, okay, for the next 6 months, we're not doing any formal learning. There's no bookworks, there's no sheet, there's no homeschooling, there's nothing. We are going to travel. We're going to have an absolute ball as a family. And we're just going to, deschool him and, see what happens. And I tell you, as that time went by, you could see these little sparks starting to happen. And it was magical to watch happen, because nobody was forcing him to learn anymore. So all of a sudden he'd start asking questions, and you're like, yeah, that's a really good question. And you'd start researching, but you never said the L word, we're not learning,
right.
We're just... So as I said, though, nobody told me that I had to deschool, and, I'd done 18 years of school. So I struggled with it for a long time. I could see the kids were learning, but part of me was saying, oh, but, are they up to speed with, he should be in year 7 now. Is he up to speed with what they're doing? And what I did notice at 22 months, I had this realization that something had changed. So nearly 2 years on the road, I went, hey, you know what? I'm cool with this. And I realized I'd had a change. Without even realizing it, at 18 months, something had switched. And so that 1 month per year that I'd been in school, for me, was absolutely spot on. So I think deschooling is critical. Whatever method you're going to choose to educate your kids, I think I'm a huge fan of deschooling, and just giving your family a chance to just get out there and get to know each other again and enjoy that time, and then move into whatever method you choose. So
exactly. Yeah, take a break.
Oops, yeah, exactly. We do have a question, and I think we touched on this a little bit. Someone's asked, how do you motivate a child in self-directed learning? And I guess I touched on this a little bit, that, when we are stationary, like when COVID hit, I struggled with that a little bit. And for us, Galileo, which we'll talk about in a moment, that was our answer. That was an amazing answer. Yeah. For, when we are world schooling, I don't find a need to really motivate them at all, because what we do is we go out, we have a day out, and these questions come up. You go and see a pyramid. Well, how did that happen? And all of these sorts of things. And then we have a down day where they can have their computer time, and I don't have to motivate them during that time. But it's amazing, they come back to you at the end of that day and go, oh, how we saw the pyramid yesterday? Well, today I looked online and I discovered blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But this, being at home as much as we are at the moment, and a lot of people are because of COVID and quarantines and all of that, definitely for me has made it a little bit more difficult. What's your take on that, Liz?
Yeah, I mean, without Galileo, when we were, before Galileo, I just let my kids pursue their interests. And, you know, one of them loves her iPad, and she started drawing, and we got her that app Procreate, which is a weird word, but it's a cool app. And she just spends hours a day on it. And she also played a lot of Roblox, and she improved her reading and writing through playing crazy. Roblox.
I know, it's
and now
crazy,
she's really into writing. She likes to write stories and creative. I think, like, we're trying to figure it out, but she's into maybe becoming a cartoonist, or, you know, like drawing and words and stuff and telling stories. So that all just came naturally. I didn't have to motivate her. It's just, I just encouraged her, you know? I mean, yeah, I tried to spend time. Oh, that's really cool. And show me. And why don't we post this on Instagram? Let's send it to grandma. This is really awesome. So I didn't have to motivate her in that way. And again, they joined Galileo, and there's an awesome way to motivate kids that way. Let's see, there's another. Oh yes, if my child decides they want to go to college, how do you prep them for taking the GED test? Is that required for being accepted? I've heard from somebody not to take the GED. I've heard that, you know, again, if you're homeschooling, unschooling, worldschooling, whatever, kids can study for the SATs or the GCSEs on their own, and they can do test prep and do it. Also, some kids can, if you're in the US, you can dual.
Oops, I think we've lost you, Liz.
As a 16-year-old. Sorry.
It's getting in and out a little bit.
I don't know. I'm paying for.
There you go. You're back now.
So sorry. I don't know when I cut out, but
there you go.
Did you hear the part when I said you
about
can
studying
enroll in
for
community
SATs
college?
and in America?
Yeah, you can study for the SATs or the IGCSEs, whatever your country has, or 16-year-olds can join in the US and maybe Canada, a community college, and dual enroll as a homeschooler or unschooler, whatever. And then they're getting real grades there, and then move on to a 4-year college. So I kind of heard that GED is frowned upon by some 4-year universities if your kid wants to go to a 4-year university, because it's a pretty easy test to take. I think it's better to try to study for the SATs test. And you don't have to have a high school diploma to take the SATs. I don't know about the IGCSEs, but there's plenty of homeschool, unschooled kids who have gone to university, and there's definitely a path there. And a lot of universities in the US, at least, really like kids who didn't have a traditional education. Yeah, they love Worldschooling.
And that's what I hear all the time. In a couple of weeks, we're actually going to be talking to Dr. Kate Green, who is a university professor who's homeschooled, world-schooled a whole bunch of kids herself. And she's going to share some incredible information because, I mean, her kids some have gone on to college, some have gone on, like, so many different careers that they've had, but they're all super successful. And as I said, she world schooled all of them. And so she's got a very different take on things because she is a university professor. So we'll be talking to her, I think it's 2 weeks from now. But I guess the thing that I would add to this, because obviously, you know, my son's about to turn 17, so it's something that we're starting to think about. You know, what I'm seeing, especially now that we're world schooling, is that, you know, I kind of feel, first of all, they may not want to go to college. There are so many professions or, you know, directions that they can take that don't need a career. You know, an example for me, I had a very successful cake decorating business in Australia. Every single skill that I learned watching YouTube. So, you know, there are so many avenues for learning these days. Now, if your child wants to be a doctor, if they're passionate about being a doctor, then they're also going to be passionate about doing what they need to do to become that doctor. And so then as a homeschooling or world schooling parent, it's about finding those tools that can help them get there. And there are so many tools out there. But like you said, I've heard repeatedly that colleges, universities, they love the real life experience that world schooling kids have got. And a child from a traditional school just doesn't have that. You know, a world schooling child has an incredible ability to know how to learn, and, you know, they've already done that self-directed and, you know, all of those sorts of things. So,
and they also bring a global mindset too, and that's what a lot of universities like nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are definitely paths that your children can take. And I don't think in any way, shape or form a child is disadvantaged by being world schooled. Yes, it is a very different education, but my goodness, once you get out and you actually start experiencing it and watching what your child is becoming, because they have the ability to follow their passions and discover what they love about life and what they might want to do. Nobody's forcing them to say, oh, you should be an accountant, or you should be a doctor, or you should be a lawyer, or whatever the case may be. It's an incredible education, albeit very different to the traditional system.
Yes. I think my kids with Worldschooling and with the combination of Galileo, they're getting a world-class education, much better than what they can get back in the traditional system.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Galileo. Now, I discovered Galileo at the start of the whole pandemic. We weren't traveling, we weren't moving, we were locked inside our house, and we were lacking socialization. We were lacking any sort of direction. I was working full time. My husband was working full time. We just needed help. We discovered Galileo. And so the kids have now been enrolled, I guess we're talking, I don't know, 13, 14 months, something like that. And it has been absolutely incredible. And I think for parents that are just getting started, I remember telling you when we first chatted, we did an interview, and I remember telling you that Galileo was the solution I didn't know I needed, because it's, I'm going to let you, I'm just going to rave about it for a second. But it answers all of those, concerns that a parent might have in terms of guidance, and, I can't be the teacher, and, all of those sorts of things. So look, I'm going to hand over to you, because I'm just, I'm a raving parent. I love what you guys do.
Well, I do. I mean, when I heard about the idea of Galileo when it launched, I was like, I have to be part of this, because it's the type of education I want my kids to have, a self-directed, supportive education, but I don't have to be the main teacher. I don't have to force my kids to learn things that they're not interested in. And there's a big community. So, basically it launched almost 2 years ago. And the team first launched the Homeschooling Global Summit to do research and interview alternative education experts like Sir Ken Robinson, Peter Gray, Pamela Rickia, a whole bunch of them. And I was watching the summit as an attendee, and then I showed up to a Zoom meeting, and anyway, I just got sucked in. And they said they're launching the school first with a book club. And so my kids started that, and then they had the daily check-ins, which are, they're kind of like scrum meetings at tech companies. Galileo's kind of like a tech company, and where the kids say, okay, this is what I did last week, and this is what I'm working on this week, and these are the challenges I have, and this is what's going well. And there's a group of 7 kids and one facilitator that really help the kids keep accountable and motivated. There's lots of social time too. It's a half-an-hour meeting every day. And also the kids make a presentation on whatever they're learning once a month. So that helps with them teaching other kids what they're learning. And so it's online. All sessions are live and interactive. For now, we are going to be launching on-demand courses for the kids who want asynchronous learning. But for now, they're all live, and we have like a cohort in the Americas, and then one cohort in Europe, Africa, and Asia. But now Asia, we're growing there. So Asia's getting their own cohort, and we've hired teachers there. Because before that, the kids in Asia had to start their day really late, and people in Australia who want to join are like, this is way too late for me. Anyway, so we're solving that problem, and eventually we'll have stuff going around the clock. But yeah, so it's on live, in person, in English. It's self-directed, child-led learning. Each child has a schedule that the education team helps them create. And then they basically take a variety of online learning experiences or clubs. And there's a lot, especially because we've done the research about what type of skills would be handy for kids to know when they're older. We basically strew a bunch of skills in STEAM, skills of the future, entrepreneurship, and global citizenship. And of course, there's some academic stuff there as well. But the students pick and choose what they want to do, and they're supported by the team. And there's not a lot that parents have to do unless maybe the kids are young and need to learn how to do Zoom and, stay on task. Yeah, so it's really introducing kids the skills of the future and how to learn. It's about 1.5 years old and has 200 students in over 30 countries. So
Sorry, Liz,
it's been pretty fabulous.
I didn't mean to throw you. I just wanted to show everybody the sort of variety. You know, the kids just put this on my Google Calendar, so I knew what was available to them at any one time. And like the sheer volume of variety and opportunities that the kids have to try new things and learn new things, and they're able to do this with their classmates. It just blows my mind, the opportunities that they have. And so much of this is supported by when we're traveling, we're exploring certain things, and we've got a beautiful garden where we are at the moment, and Sienna's just absolutely loving it. So she found a nature club which she joined yesterday, which I think is a student-led club, and so it's sort of it's full clubs. Yeah, it's full circle, and brings it all together. And I love that I know when we start traveling again, I'm not having to get up at some crazy time of the morning, because there are the opportunities to do that on the other time zones as well.
Yes, exactly. And, my kids, we moved from Mexico. We're now in the Republic of Georgia. So they did have to leave the Americas cohort and, join a new one, and they had new classmates, but the teachers were the same and the system was the same. And so, and another thing is there's no mandatory attendance. You can take breaks whenever you want. It's a year-round program. So some people will take breaks during Christmas, others during Chinese New Year's, others during Ramadan. I mean, we do have kids in many different cultures. So it's really nice and flexible. There's no, as a world schooler, we could take a day or two off. We went skiing for a month, 3 days a week for a month. And my girls didn't go attend any Galileo sessions those days. And it was totally fine. There was no, we didn't get in trouble. We didn't have the attendance monitor chase after us. And yeah, they're just learning how to launch businesses. And one of my girls is doing 3D modeling and 2D animation. And there's also a VR club. We just ordered the Oculus, and we shipped it from the US, so we're getting that any day now. I mean, these are things that I, as a unschooling parent facilitator, would never have thought of. And my kids are learning skills, not just academics. They're learning practical skills that they can use in the future or now. I mean, we have a lot of students that are starting little sticker businesses on Redbubble, and I mean, it's the kind of stuff that they're doing is really amazing, and it's super supportive, and everyone's really nice. There's no bullying. I mean, the kids and the teachers and the parents, it's an awesome community. So it's very forward-thinking parents, and the kids are all, we think that every single kid is a genius, and because there's something about them that's amazing. And the opportunities of things to learn are very cutting edge and avant-garde. And I've never known of any program that introduces as many cool things to learn as
And I'd
Galileo.
say real life as well. That's what I've really enjoyed about this. This is not, sit down and learn history or, learn this. It's, my daughter did the nano degree in entrepreneurship, start your own business. And she was teaching me about business plans when she was 7. So, when she got into this and she's like, Mom, they're teaching me how to start my own business. When are you going to learn that at school? Most traditional schools are just not going to teach you that.
You have to wait until you go to Stanford Business School. And so Galileo is basically the younger kids version of Stanford Business School.
Yeah. So it's, and I guess this answers the question that someone asked earlier, is about motivating your child in a self-directed approach. I've got this on another screen, but we've got Spanish club and history club, and my daughter does a reading club. She's part of the book nook to help her continue practicing her reading. She's just started arts and craft club and just loves that. She's about to start dance club, and she's just like beside herself that she can have dance club, and VR club, change makers, science club. It's real things that these kids love learning about. And I guess in that sense, there's not a lot of motivation on my behalf needed. I don't have to motivate them, because they have such a wide range of subjects or clubs that they can join. Yeah.
We've heard of students, we've heard of parents complain that when they go on vacation, their kids still want to do check-in and their clubs. I mean, this is how much they like it.
And the teachers are amazing. My kids have got Senka, and they just absolutely love her. So she's amazing. And, and as a parent, she regularly messages me and sends me their once a month presentations that they do. And I feel like, as I said, this was the solution that I didn't know I needed. We were doing well, but this has just taken it to another level. I can now get my work done knowing that the kids are not only learning, but really enjoying what they're doing. Now, I want to ask you, you guys have got some really cool projects coming up. You've got, tell me about your dojos.
Yeah, so when my girls joined the school, they were with Galileo, they were attending an Agile Learning Center in Mexico as well. And so after their check-in, I would drive them to this place. And our CEO was like, why are you putting your kids in a physical school when we're building one? And I said, I still want to have that in-person interaction, you know, the face-to-face, and for my kids to learn Spanish. And anyway, we pulled them out of that, and they've been with Galileo ever since. But I've always thought the perfect combination, perfect type of school, the future of learning, is a combination of online and in person. So we're launching an initiative. Well, we started a couple months ago, and I have been talking with over 20 people around the world to launch their own micro schools or self-directed learning centers or world school hubs or what have you. We're calling them dojos. And so these are people in the US, the UK, Mexico, Peru, all bunch of places in Europe, Romania, Nairobi, Kenya, Singapore, Tokyo, Bangkok, and we have a bunch of them. And I'm helping them because I used to own a physical children's business in preschool, remember? So I'm helping them launch. I mean, of course, they have to find the location. Some of them are starting off in their houses, like downstairs, and they're creating these little pods of students, their own, and maybe the neighborhood kids. And they're going to do a lot of in-person stuff, the kind of fun stuff that you do maybe at a Worldschooling hub, and cultural stuff, or they'll build Legos together, or go take a walk and do yoga, or go surfing. I mean, some of the stuff that they have planned is amazing. And then when it's time for the Galileo class, they'll grab their laptops and headphones and go find a quiet place to do their check-in or their club or whatever. Then when they're done with that, they'll come back with the group and do something fun. I mean, I have 2 kids, and their classwork with Galileo is sometimes at 11:30, then nothing until 2, then nothing until 4, and it's off and on all day. And so in the in-between times, it's great to be with other kids and a facilitator. So we are launching these. We're calling them local dojos. And I'm super excited because when the pandemic is over, my kids and I are going to hop around the world, visiting them all. And we're setting up like a worldwide access. And I'm still in the process of figuring it out. But basically, we will show up in Cluj, Romania, and the founder of the dojo will send a car to pick us up in our luggage and bring us there. And she'll suggest which Airbnb near the dojo to stay in.
Wow, that's cool.
Give us a list of all the favorite restaurants and activities, and send us a Google Maps of all the things to do. Just really make us feel welcome, and then we'll start at her center and be with her local Romanian kids who, a lot of them speak English, and they're also in the dojo. And it'll be a great way. It's kind of like a World School Hub, but like local people. And but international people too, because again, to join Galileo, you need to be somewhat fluent in English. And then we'll spend a month or 2 there, and then we'll go hop over to Mexico and visit the dojo there, and then we'll go to Nairobi, and we'll hop around the world.
And with so many on the drawing board, you could literally jump from place to place to place. And I love the idea of that local connection, because it's the one thing that I always strive to do, is have that local connection, because I think you learn so much. You can't learn as much about the local area just as a tourist. It's that local connection that helps you learn that. And look, we could obviously talk about this all day. There is information, the link is on the screen. The other one I wanted to ask you about is your events directory. And I think this is going to be an awesome addition for the Worldschooling community.
My colleague, Marila Paley, is leading up that initiative, and her kids have been with Galileo almost as long as my kids have been. And she has a lot of experience launching retreats, like yoga and Pilates retreats. But she was complaining ever since I've known her, like, there is no, like, what's happening in the world for kids? Like, there's no one place to know. I mean, of course, there's like local directories of kids events and camps, summer camps and all that, but nothing global. So we are creating it. And anyone who has a family event, or it has to be like an overnight stay, or like a retreat or summer camp or something like that, like maybe your workation or something, they can list it in the directory for free. And it'll be kind of like a booking.com, but for a family and kid events and retreats. So we're working on that.
and it looks amazing. I've been sort of having a little bit of input in terms of the work that I've done in terms of the events that we've created, and the platform that's coming together is just incredible. So it'll be a great place for people to find events, but also for event organisers to do. Well, look, we've got a couple of extra questions. Well, somebody has said, Nikki said, I think Galileo sounds perfect for my kiddo. Which Galileo subscription is needed to do the things that you're talking about? So in terms of the program and everything like that.
The online, yeah, most people do the self-directed plan, which is $2,000 a year, which considering that they're live sessions is a pretty good deal. You can also try it out for $300 a month. And then I know that Karen has a coupon or something for $100 discount. So hook up with her for your first month's tuition. We do have a pro academics plan for, like, it's either for teens who are aiming to go to university soon, and that includes lots of one-on-one tutoring for various academic subjects and test prep for SAT and IGCSE. Or if you live in a country where the country really demands that the kids take tests once in a while, it's a good idea to do the pro academics plan. We may be launching an after school program. There's so much in the works. We're going to be launching an app store. I mean, so many things. We want to be the one-stop shop for learning and kids stuff, basically.
And you guys are truly revolutionizing the education system. And, you know, I mean, I can only really talk from my experience with my kids, and I wish I'd had this as a kid. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know any better, and there really wasn't anything else around at that time. But the skills that as an adult I've had to go and actively search out, my kids are getting now at 10 and 16. So like Liz said, for Worldschooling Central members, you can save $100 per child off your tuition. Visit the link on the screen, galileo.worldschoolingcentral.com, and you'll be able to find that there. Now, Liz, I'm gonna let everybody ask, you know, anybody that's watching the replay, I'm gonna have them ask any additional questions that they might have underneath the video. And of course, I know you're part of Worldschooling Central as well, so I'm sure you'll be in there and answer some questions for those people.
Yeah, I will be happy to answer any questions whenever. You can reach out to me on Facebook too if you want to.
One more question we have, are all the Galileo clubs available under the monthly plan?
Yeah, everything. You can try us for a month. The $300 minus $100 discount, $200, and you get access to all the clubs, the nanos, the boot camps, the magazine club. I mean, there's like everything for the month. We also have a free learning network. We have a free learning network you can join, and there's a self-directed education course for parents. So I highly recommend you take it. It's a free course. You can learn about it and then see how Galileo does stuff, and then decide if this is a good fit for your kids. We're also going to have some free stuff for kids yet, but we haven't launched that yet.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Liz. I think this has been really valuable for our community. And as a Galileo parent, I obviously love it and want to recommend it to people. Worldschooling can be whatever you want it to be in terms of your child's education, and that's what we really wanted to do today was just give you an oversight of all the different options that you've got available, so that you've got a little bit more information. So thank you so much for joining me today, Liz.
Thank you. This was awesome. I really appreciate this, Karen. It was really fun.
Absolutely. No worries. All right, we'll talk soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
To find out more about Galileo School and get your $100 enrollment bonus, visit galileo.worldschoolingcentral.com. To learn more about Worldschooling, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to receive a notification every time we upload a new video.